I'm Joshua Shumack, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Native American Affairs Program Coordinator at the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs. I work with our Native American Advisory Committee, which is made up of the sitting chiefs of the recognized tribes and Indian groups from across the state. We work on both the state and the county level on projects, initiatives, events, and just facilitating services to help the socio and economic development of their communities.
Give me a round of applause. And we have Mr. Lamar Nelson.
Some of the things we do here is connecting tribes with other services. We are a good facilitator between tribes and state agencies depending on the projects that they're working on. We also provide tribes with updates about grant opportunities, whether it be from the private or public sector, as well as just provide support and facilitation for some of the projects they have on the ground in their counties. CMA has collaborated with the Native American Study Center since its inception. Currently, the Study Center sits in our advisory committee, and the Study Center itself puts on exhibitions and displays from the tribes all across the state, from the Catawba to our state-recognized tribes, showing their impact that they've had on our state.
I'm Dr. Stephen Criswell. I'm the Director of Native American Studies at USC Lancaster, where I'm also Professor of English and Folklore. It goes back to 2005, or maybe even 2004, when there was a scholar interested in the Catawba, and he was a collector as well, and his name was Thomas Bloomer. And Dr. Bloomer had spent a career at the Library of Congress, but on the side, he purchased Catawba Indian pottery, Catawba Nation pottery, and collected materials, any publication, any reference to the Catawba. He was an excellent compiler of information. And he had decided in the early 2000s that he wanted to sell his pottery collection and his archive of materials. In the end, he ended up donating the archives. And the university, with the assistance of D. Lindsay Pettis, who was a very important figure here in Lancaster, the university purchased his pottery collection as well. So in 2005, when the university received the archive, I was brought up to interview for a new position that was being created to direct a program. And originally our program was going to be Catawba studies. We were just going to focus primarily on the Catawba Nation. But as we began doing our work, we realized that no one was really writing much, saying much, doing too much with the state-recognized tribes as well. So we expanded to focus on South Carolina tribal communities, the Catawba Nation as the only federally recognized tribe, and then the state-recognized tribes. And our focus it starts with the Catawba, expands out to South Carolina, and then goes out to the southeast. We started in 2005 with the archive, and we slowly began the process of purchasing the pottery. At that point, the archive was really in just a small room in our main campus library, and the pottery was just sort of scattered in different places around campus. But in around 2011, I received a call from our dean, John Catalano, and John is a very straightforward guy. When he calls you, there's no hello, how are you, whatever. I pick up the phone and I hear, Criswell, you want a building? I said, I'm sorry, what? He said, do you want a building? And I said, sure, what for? He said, for the archives and for the pottery. And it turned out the city of Lancaster had this space available and had talked with the university for years about bringing something downtown that would help the university, but also help enliven the downtown area. And so this building that started life as a department store, or I think it was a furniture store at one point, it was briefly an arts center, but then the city took over it. And they renovated it. They put, my understanding was $1 million into renovating the space and transformed it into just beautiful space. I mean, they did an amazing job. Perception Builders here in Lancaster, they were the designers of this and created a floor that looks like a riverbed, multiple circles, sort of in keeping with the native theme. You notice our hallways. I tell people it's impossible to get lost here. Just keep walking and you'll come back around. But they put this together in a very brief amount of time, and we moved in the fall of 2012 and started teaching classes here and started bringing programs. We've been doing programming for a few years on campus, but having our own space sort of gave us the opportunity to have a ready-made performance space, lecture space, classroom space. We still do some things on the main campus, but it's really given us the opportunity to focus our work, because our faculty are in different areas, archaeology and anthropology. I teach English classes as well as folklore. Professor Brittany Taylor-Driggers teaches both studio art and art history, and curates and oversees the collection. And so we all have different hats that we wear, and we're even in different divisions, but this space brings us together to work together as a faculty. And we have an amazing staff that we've developed over the years who help us as well. Some of them are actual graduates of our four-year program, the Palmetto College program, and have come back to work with us. And it's a great space, and we've done some great programs over the years, and we keep doing them. Chris Judge and I share a seat on the advisory council for the Commission for Minority Affairs Native American Advisory Council, and because Chris lives in Columbia, he's better able to attend those meetings, but we're generally represented there. But our programs here, we started back even before we had the center, the sort of second year or into the second year of starting what we decided would be Native American Studies. We invited the tribal leaders from the Catawba, but also all of the state recognized tribes, to come to campus and to talk. And we had a very informative, productive talk. Our dean at that time, John Catalano, was there, who was very supportive of our work and worked with some of the tribal groups, offered them opportunities to go to school here. But one of the things that really stood out for me was when the late Gene Norris, who was the chief of the Piedmont American Indian Association, he stood up and said, school kids don't know our story. The textbooks don't tell our story. They'll say a little bit about the Catawba, they'll say a little bit about the Yamasee, a little bit about the Cherokee, but anybody else and everybody else is completely left off, and our story's not being told. And I told him, I said, Chief, you are the best person to tell your story. Your community is the best representation of your community. What we want to do is facilitate that, to help you tell that story, and to provide you with a sort of canvas to illustrate your history, your culture. And so one of the things we did when we first opened the center is, particularly before COVID, we made a point of having what we call a Chiefs Luncheon, where we would invite tribal leaders to come up and have lunch with us and just talk about what's going on in their communities. But we also reserved gallery space so that any of the state recognized tribes who wanted to put up an exhibit could come here, and our staff and faculty would assist, would provide the materials, would give their expertise as much as possible. But what was represented was what the tribe selected and what the community wanted, the story the community wanted to be told. We would give them a space to tell that. And so we've had the Waccamaw, we've had the Wassamasaw, I believe we've had the Piedmont American Indian Association, we had the Sumter Tribe of Sherall, probably a couple of others that are slipping my mind now. But and so we're hoping that our invitation leads to more and more exhibits and opportunities for these tribal communities to tell their story.
The Study Center does an excellent job of raising awareness of the Native American population to the general public. One of the things we hear often is that we didn't know there was Native Americans in South Carolina, but the Study Center works directly with the tribes to promote their own narratives, and is one of the only institutions across the state that does that, to put on these exhibitions.
My name is Nicole Fox Braswell. I'm a member of the Catawba Indian Nation, and I am a painter, an artist. The genres that I typically dive into with my art is acrylic paint, but I also do mixed media, and I'm a potter as well as a stained glass maker.
We try to find artisans in the community. I recently finished up a project looking at low country tribal communities, and one of the things we made a point of doing was we wanted to try to get as much of the material culture that we could, because it's much easier to exhibit objects than text. People don't like to stand around reading walls, but we do provide that. And we've done a lot of oral histories with them, and we're working on making more and more of those available, both as exhibits and online. But we were able to get a drum from the Wassamasaw. We were able to get some beadwork. We got handmade canoe paddles from the Edisto Natchez Coosa. And work from the Beaver Creek, Miss Helen Jeffcoat, particularly her work. And so we're always looking for material from these cultures that we can purchase, because one, we want to be able to tell their story accurately and help them tell their story, and two, we want to support their artists as well. And so we always make a point of trying to buy directly from the artists whenever possible.
Some of our art styles have changed. For example, talking about beading with my tribe, we were a coastal tribe, so we used to use shell beads that we found along the coast. Nowadays we use sea beads, we store-bought, but what we make from them is still about the tradition and still part of the practices, and it's all very still personal to the people creating it. For example, with my regalia, I wanted to be very nature-oriented, so with the leggings and the pants, I started with blades of grass growing up from it. And then for the apron, the front of it, I had a deer on a stream with fish. And on the back, I had our 8 tribal symbols. And that's very personal to me for my tribe, because it's about how our tribe used to cultivate, how we used to farm, a pottery with the jug. We have the shell and the fish because we were coastal. It's a lot of things that are personal to you. And so although some of the things have changed, it's still very personal to the individual that's making it. So the reason that we make it is still the same, even though the materials may be different.
There are historical styles and historical media, I guess, that goes back thousands of years. Obviously, the best example there is Catawba pottery, right? That's has a history that stretches back 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years, continuous tradition, unchanged in many ways. But when we start thinking about the contemporary context, it does get changed. So in the case of Catawba pottery, we see in the 20th century ashtrays, for example, or we have a chess set that's not a traditional Catawba form, but it's these European styles. But you see that early on with Catawba pottery, when the potters started imitating European china and tea kettles and all that sort of thing, because they understood the market. Our friend and colleague Becky Garris says, Catawba potters, we sell what sells. So if there was a market for it, that's what they sold. We still see beadwork that has a long history that's still being carried on, but in a contemporary context, you might see beadwork in a USC design or a Clemson design. So that influence comes in. I think we're starting to see more and more sort of pan-Indian objects, powwow objects, which would be items that are handmade usually. They're usually sold at powwows. They aren't necessarily historic in that it's a hand axe or something like that. There's more interest in design and creativity using the traditional materials, whether it's deer leather, buckskin, or beads or basketry, so that those old materials are there, but the contemporary artist puts their own spin on it, I think a lot more than in the past.
I think arts and crafts played a big role in preserving culture and celebrating it. I know, for example, my tribe, we have a lot of cultural classes, and it does a good thing about teaching why you do things and why you celebrate things. For example, I'm a big turtle lover, so I always collect turtles made out of clay. And one of the reasons is because of the world turtle, where, the world's on top of the turtle's back, or Turtle Island. And it's just a lot of things that you don't learn every day, and that a way you keep that history alive is through your arts and culture.
I'm fascinated with how people in the past were just as creative as we are today. I mean, we look at the historic pottery, some of which we have in our collection, and you see these amazing patterns and designs on them. And archaeologists will say, well, this is to indicate a regional group or a family group. But at the same time, you look at it and you go, yeah, but I think it also was just pretty. And I think human beings like making well-made objects. They like the praise that they get for it. They like the pride that they have in it. And so I think in whether it's contemporary Native artists or a Native artist from 1,500 years ago, I think what we see there is a wonderful blend of tradition, as T.S. Eliot says, the tradition and the individual talent.
The more I do it, the more I learn about what works, what doesn't work. But I have been maturing and progressing on my woodworking. So in the beginning they were like thin, like this, but I'm recording history. I'm recording the regalia. I'm recording the emotions that people feel. And now they're getting to be, I'm working on thicker wood. So I feel like I am getting better, progressing in that area. But what makes me want to do it is, it starts out as a block of wood and then it turns into something beautiful. And I kind of get a good feeling and expression of it. Personally, I don't think I could go a day without creating something. And I've tried to do like regular dancers, ballerinas and all that, but it doesn't feel right when I'm doing it. It just, the wood tells me to turn it into something Native American. It's got to have a feather, or it's got to have a fan, or I'm still working through that, but it means a lot to me that people come and look at my stuff and want to buy it. And when they do buy it, it just makes me feel accomplished, that as a Native American artist, as an artist, that I have done something right. And it has worth to me.
First and foremost, we are USC Lancaster's Native American Studies Center. So we are an educational institution, and our primary job is to teach. And that takes different forms. And we offer classes for college students and for advanced high school students, where you can study Native American oral history, you can study Native American archaeology and art and so forth, and history. But we also, we offer programs that tend to skew a little older. I think we have our lunch and learn programs and our lecture series and lecture opportunities and performances. But it's important to us both to help the Native communities, help them teach their children by providing them with whatever resources that we have here, to give them the opportunity to come to college. To help them with that. And there's a strong initiative both on our campus and at the main Columbia campus to recruit more and more Native South Carolina students. We have faculty who are involved in changing school curriculum so that there's more representation, as I said earlier. It's not just Cherokee, Yamasee, Catawba, but all of the other tribes and all of the other history that's part of it. And I often tell people Native American history is American history.
I started basically when I was like 5 years old, watching my mother do needlepoint. She would let me do little simple stitches. And then since I was interested in that, she went and bought what was at the time basically like doing the kids crafting. And my daddy, he was always good with woodworking because he was a carpenter and a subcontractor. So it was always in my blood on the native side and Irish side. I feel close to nature. I'm the type that loves to go out in the yard barefoot in the fresh cut grass. It makes me feel connected to my ancestors because I do even sometimes incorporate older pieces of pottery that has been found into my crafts to connect to my mother's people. And I've always generated toward the native more than I did the Irish. And it is literally, I wouldn't say religious experience, but it is a spiritual connecting to my ancestors. It's part of me. Even if I never set up and sold again, I would never stop making till the day I take my last breath.
For more information, to get in contact or to learn more about our tribes, please visit our website at cma.sc.gov.